But I want you as students and future professional people, being in 5th semester, of course you're just on the cusp of going out there, to think of the same thing. Having a domain name where you can put stuff. Now, you may not have some immediate use for it right now, but how many people on this planet? 6.5 billion? The chances of many people having your same first name and last name is quite high. And the opportunity for buying your domain name with your first and last name is good right now before too many people start doing it and you miss out and then have to use middle initials and stuff like that. Okay, well, that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. In terms of registering a domain name, there are quite a few considerations to think of. One of the reasons why I use Whittaker.com is it's very, very short. It's easy to remember. If I wrote ProfessorTimRichardson.com, that's a long, awkward type of phrase, which is not easy for people to remember. Choosing words appropriate to the circumstances. So if you're Richardson Hardwood Flooring, that's your company, you've been operating that way for many, many years, and it makes sense to have RichardsonHardwoodFlooring.com. Don't use cute abbreviations, because the thing about using abbreviations is it can end up being words in other languages, and we got some very funny examples we'll talk about in a few seconds. And try to incorporate nouns or phrases that match your existing promotional material. So companies like Cannabo Cosmetics, whose slogan is "For a Beautiful Human Life," will also buy that as a domain name as well. So when a company is buying domain names and coming up with new advertising slogans, they try to buy the domain name that matches, for the simple reason they don't want anybody else buying that domain name and hijacking it on them. So, a couple of rules that some past students, as you can see here, Amelia, Omri, and Rekel, who were in previous sections, found a website talking about things you want to know in domain names. What makes a good domain name? Short. Easy to spell. Descriptive. Some keywords. Now, there are some do's and don'ts when registering your domain name. First of all, make sure the provider is reputable. When you buy your cell phone, you can buy from a number of different people the physical unit, but you've only got 3 or 4 places to sign up with. You've got TELUS, Bell Mobility, and Rogers, which are main 3. You've also got Virgin and Koodo and other ones like that, right? Now, domain names are not like that. You can buy echo. You can buy domain names from anybody. There's no regulation in this industry, especially for the .com endings. So you have to be very circumspect going on websites, especially if they're offering a domain name for $12 for 10 years or some ridiculously low amount like that, because there's no United Nations rules or regulations about that. And if you're very, very cheap and don't want to pay the proper amount that you think would be necessary, then you're going to get caught that way. So you should be thinking carefully before you go with a company offering a loss leader. Once you've bought your domain name, check to see that you can transfer it to another provider. One of the things I'm going to give you suggestions, when you buy your domain name, don't get hooked up for the hosting service at the same time. When you register your domain name, always put the correct legal name for trading operation. Right? So if you're Ricky Sherpa Advertising, then use Ricky Sherpa as a contact for your domain name, because that way, if you need to change something later on, then that can be legitimate as a contact. That's one of the ways that people hack domain names, is by superimposing that they're the person who's Ricky Sherpa contacting the domain registrar. So, a couple of points also. Another reason why you should buy your own domain name. All of you have got high-speed internet access at home, right? You've either got Rogers, or you've got Bell Simpatico, or you've got Shaw Cable, wherever part of the city you live in. And they automatically give you 20, 25, 50 meg of space if you wanted to set up content, right? So, for example, let's say you're Glenn, and do you have Rogers or Bell Simpatico? Do you remember?
Bell.
Bell. So probably you've got www.simpatico.ca/tilde something Glenn B. And if you want to, you could put pictures there of your Ferrari and all kinds of content that you wanted to. But let's say you and your girlfriend decide to move to Mississauga, and in the condominium you're living there, they don't have Bell. There's Rogers in the building. You can't switch, right? So then all of a sudden, all the links that you had built on that website would die. They wouldn't be connected anymore because you have a different hosting service, right? So that's another reason why you should buy your own domain name, is you simply call Bell and say, I own the domain name. I want you to host the content for me. So all your links would then be www.glennbaker.com/boat1, boat2, Ferrari1, Ferrari2. And those links wouldn't change no matter what the hosting service. It's like when I call you on your cell phone, right? I don't know if you've got Rogers or Telus or whatever. I just know the cell phone number works and it continues to work. And if you move between services, it continues to work. So a couple things to consider when you're selecting a domain name. First of all, in the corporate context, you should also think of the company name as well. So if you're talking to people who are setting up a business the same time they're thinking about buying a domain name, here's an important consideration. How many people have been taught how to incorporate a business? Did you do that in Intro to Business? No. Actually, I was your prof for Intro to Business, wasn't it? Okay, my bad. But the point I'm getting at is incorporating your business is one of the steps in determining your domain name, because you want to have the names match. It wouldn't make sense to have something like Alfonso Construction, and then that's the checks, and that's the pay, and that's the corporate structure, and then it goes to Ricky Construction on the website, right? So here's the point I want to get at. When you're thinking about setting up a domain name for a business, you should make sure that the corporate name is also available. So here's an example. Patrick Warren Architects, right? So if you had Patrick Warren Architects was the business name that you wanted to operate on, and you wanted to set up the domain name Patrick Warren Architects, before you did that, you should research to see if as a company name, Patrick Warren Architects Limited is available. And here's what you do. You use these services like Nuance Name Search, and you can go there and ascertain whether or not the company name is available. To incorporate a company is a lot more simpler than some people might have told you. You don't need lawyers. All you have to do is go down to 393 University Avenue, up on the second floor. You pay about $320. You fill out 5 or 6 sheets of paper, and on the sheet of paper it says company name. Now, before you can write down that name, you have to tell the government what name you want to pick. And the government doesn't agree or disagree what your name is. They simply allow it to be registered if it's not similar to an existing name. So the step before that is you get a PDF printout from one of these companies like LegalLink that shows you if I wanted to have, say, Doug Marshall Architects. They would search the words Doug Marshall and find out that there's Doug Marshall Construction, Doug Marshall Figure Skating, Doug Marshall Aircraft Instruction, but there's no Doug Marshall Construction. So therefore, that word would be available to register as a company. And then after you've locked that up, then confirm that DougMarshallConstruction.com would be available so the two things can match, because that gives you a sense of legitimacy. Now, one of my students was listening in class. We were talking about how you get these names and how you find about their availability. And you can go to the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, which offers a free trademark search. And all you have to do is type in the name you're interested in, and it gives you a list of all the current trademarks, which is something you should also do at the same time you're looking for domain names. Now, a couple of other suggestions in terms of your global domainization. Some people are also considering how your domain name will be available in other countries around the world. So when you buy the .com, at the same time you can check to see if the .ch is available for China, JP for Japan, UK for the UK, and so on. And linguistics. There are some words that when you combine them in domain names can be very embarrassing, and we'll talk about that in the marketing section. Words like Pen Island. If you spell that in a domain name and you look at it, it can be read as something quite different.